The United States military, entrenched in racial segregation, seemed a far cry from the ideals of equality it fought to uphold during World War II. By the late 1930s, a growing demand for inclusion by civil rights leaders and organizations, such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, urged the Roosevelt administration to address the exclusion of African Americans from military aviation. Yet, it was not until April 3, 1939, when Public Law 18 was passed, that a meager concession was made. This law required the Civil Aeronautics Authority to establish a school to train black pilots. However, it came with the caveat of segregation, setting the stage for the formation of the Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee, Alabama, became the birthplace of the nation's first African-American military pilots. These men, all African Americans, would be subjected to rigorous training that their white counterparts never experienced. They faced skepticism from military leaders, with early reports claiming that black soldiers lacked the intelligence and courage to excel in technical roles or combat leadership. The U.S. Army War College even published a report in 1925 suggesting that black soldiers were inherently inferior to their white counterparts. However, these assertions would soon be proven wrong. One of the pivotal figures in this new endeavor was Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., who would go on to command the 99th Fighter Squadron. A graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, Davis faced relentless racial discrimination during his training. Despite these challenges, he became the first African American to lead a military air squadron. The establishment of the 99th Fighter Squadron was considered by many to be an experiment, a trial, to see if African Americans could meet the demanding standards of military aviation. When the squadron was first deployed to North Africa in April 1943, they were subjected to a controlled, limited role by their commanding officers who doubted their abilities. Under the command of Colonel William W. Meare, the Tuskegee Airmen were initially tasked with secondary patrol missions rather than direct combat. Meare's low expectations were an uphill battle for the men who were not only fighting against enemy aircraft, but also for their dignity and right to prove themselves in combat. The first combat mission of the Tuskegee Airmen occurred on June 2 of 1943, when they flew escort for bombers over the Italian-held island of Pantelleria. Although no aircraft were lost on either side, the mission served as a crucial proving ground for the squadron, signaling to the Germans that these pilots would not crumble under pressure. Despite facing skepticism from higher-ups, the Tuskegee Airmen had already begun to defy the expectations set for them by the U.S. military. By July 2, 1943, the Tuskegee Airmen faced a pivotal test. The young, courageous fighter pilot, First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, just 22 years old, was tasked with protecting a formation of bombers on their way to Castelvetrano airfield in Sicily. During this mission, Hall spotted two Focke-Wulf 190 A9s, some of the most formidable German aircraft of the time, tailing the bombers. Hall, with precision and courage, engaged the German fighters, downing one of them. The first kill by a black American pilot in U.S. military history sent shockwaves through the American and German military alike. The importance of this victory could not be overstated. In a moment that forever changed the trajectory of the squadron, Hall's achievement solidified their place in history. It marked not just an aerial victory, but a direct challenge to the racial ideologies propagated by Nazi Germany, which considered black people incapable of such feats. The Germans, who had previously mocked the Tuskegee Airmen, were now forced to contend with their abilities in the air. The success of Charles Hall was the first in a long line of victories that the Tuskegee Airmen would rack up. From 1943 to 1944, the Tuskegee Airmen fought to prove their worth on the battlefields of Europe and North Africa, eventually claiming over 100 aerial victories. The German pilots who once mocked them now had no choice but to acknowledge their skill and bravery. What had begun as a racial experiment, underestimation, and skepticism from both their German enemies and American allies had blossomed into an undeniable force in the skies. The victory of First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall on July 7, 1943, became the catalyst for the Tuskegee Airmen's continued success. Hall's kill against the German Focke-Wulf 190 A9 was not just a personal achievement, but a significant blow to the racial prejudice that had clouded the military's perception of African-American pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen, now armed with newfound respect and confidence, continued to rack up victories, proving their worth as capable and elite fighter pilots. In the following months, the 99th Fighter Squadron participated in more combat missions, steadily gaining the respect of their fellow airmen and, surprisingly, even their German adversaries. The Luftwaffe, initially skeptical of the abilities of black pilots, began to take notice as the Red Tails, so named because of their distinctive red-painted tail sections, racked up more kills. German pilots began to recognize the Red Tails in the skies and even gave them a nickname, Schwarze Vogelmenschen, or Black Birdmen. While the term was rooted in a mixture of mockery and begrudging respect, it highlighted the undeniable skill and impact of the Tuskegee Airmen in combat. Despite their growing success, the Tuskegee Airmen still faced resistance from within their own ranks. The 99th Fighter Squadron's performance had been questioned by white officers, particularly Colonel William W. Mear, who doubted the squadron's ability to excel in combat. Mear had even filed a report claiming that the Tuskegee Airmen lacked aggression, urging their removal from active duty. However, the young pilots of the 99th refused to let these prejudices define them. The squadron's defining moment came during the Battle of Anzio in January 1944. After nearly 7 months of combat, the Tuskegee Airmen were finally given the opportunity to prove themselves in a major confrontation. German forces launched a massive air raid on the Allied beachhead at Anzio, Italy, targeting the landing forces and their positions. With their backs against the wall, the Tuskegee Airmen rose to the occasion, shooting down 8 to 13 enemy aircraft in 2 days of intense combat. Captain Charles Hall, the hero of the earlier mission in Sicily, claimed 2 more victories, bringing his total to 3 kills. This success at Anzio became a turning point in the war and for the Tuskegee Airmen's reputation. The War Department conducted a study comparing the performance of the 99th Fighter Squadron to other American P-40 squadrons and found that they performed as well, if not better, than their white counterparts. The airmen's combat performance silenced many of the critics who had doubted their abilities. They had proven, in the heat of battle, that they could excel under the most challenging conditions. The success of the 99th Fighter Squadron led to a major expansion of their role within the United States Army Air Forces. By May 1944, the 99th, along with the newly established 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons, formed the 332nd Fighter Group. This expanded group was tasked with the critical responsibility of providing long-range escort for Allied bombers deep into Nazi Germany, missions that were considered among the most dangerous of the war. The Tuskegee Airmen, now a unified force, had earned the trust of the U.S. military, but their greatest challenge lay ahead. Their reputation for guarding bombers and protecting them from enemy fighters became legendary. The 382nd's red-tailed P-51 Mustangs, the finest aircraft of their era, became symbols of hope for Allied bombers, and their distinct red markings were recognized across Europe. The bomber crews, often under siege from Luftwaffe fighters, began to request the Red Tails for escort. The Tuskegee Airmen's success rate in escort missions was unmatched, as they provided superior protection for bombers, leading to fewer losses compared to other fighter groups. However, the Red Tails' success came at a cost. They faced some of the most intense combat missions of the war, flying long distances over hostile territory. Their bomber escort missions often involved extended sorties deep into enemy airspace, where they engaged in brutal aerial combat with the Luftwaffe's best pilots. The ultimate test of their skill came on July 18, 1944, when they were tasked with protecting a large fleet of bombers targeting the Luftwaffe base at Memmingen, Germany. In the face of overwhelming enemy forces, the Red Tails showed no fear. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the leader of the 322nd Fighter Group, made a crucial decision to stay in enemy territory rather than return to base when the bombers were delayed. As expected, the Germans launched a fierce attack with approximately 100 enemy fighters targeting the bombers from multiple directions. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Red Tails fought fiercely, claiming 11 to 12 enemy aircraft kills in a single engagement. However, the battle resulted in the loss of 15 B-17 bombers in just 20 minutes and the Tuskegee Airmen also suffered losses of 3 pilots. Although critics claimed that the high bomber losses during this mission proved that the Tuskegee Airmen could not handle major battles, operational analysis revealed the truth. The Red Tails had arrived at an impossible situation, facing a massive German assault already in progress. Their efforts had prevented a complete disaster, saving many bombers from total destruction. By the spring of 1945, the tide of war had decisively turned in favor of the Allies. However, the Luftwaffe still had a powerful weapon in its arsenal, the Messerschmitt Mi-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. With a top speed of 540 miles per hour, it was faster than any propeller-driven aircraft, including the P-51 Mustang, the primary aircraft flown by the Tuskegee Airmen. The Mi-262 posed a new challenge for the 392nd Fighter Group, but it also presented an opportunity to solidify their legacy as the finest fighter pilots of World War II. On March 24, 1945, the Red Tails were given the most important mission of their careers, to provide bomber escort on a 1,600-mile round trip to Berlin, where they would participate in the bombing of the Daimler-Benz tank factory. Intelligence reports indicated that Mi-262s would be waiting to defend the target. This mission, unlike any they had undertaken before, would require the Red Tails to face not just the Luftwaffe's traditional fighters, but also the formidable jets, which had the ability to outrun the Mustangs in speed. As the mission began, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. led 43 P-51 Mustangs, each one marked with the now iconic red tail. The weather and the distance of the mission posed significant challenges, but the stakes could not have been higher. The Red Tails had earned their reputation, but this mission would either confirm or shatter it. As they approached Berlin, the Mi-262s appeared, and the most intense aerial combat the Tuskegee Airmen had ever faced began. The Mi-262s launched their assault on the bombers, and the Red Tails engaged in fierce combat with the German jets. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown, one of the most skilled Tuskegee pilots, had studied the Mi-262's weaknesses. He knew that the jet's speed could make direct pursuit difficult, but he also understood its limitations in maneuverability. In a move that would go down in history, Brown performed a climb at a 15-degree angle, firing 3 long bursts at a Mi-262 from a distance of 2,000 feet. The jet fell from the sky, marking the first kill by an African-American pilot of a Mi-262, a feat that had been considered impossible. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Earl Lane achieved what many believed was an unattainable goal. Lane used a K-14 computing gun sight to take a 2,000-yard deflection shot, shooting down another Mi-262. The final Mi-262 kill came from Lieutenant Charles Brantley, who completed the trio of Mi-262 kills for the day. In one afternoon, the Red Tails destroyed more Mi-262s than any other fighter group in the war. This remarkable achievement was a culmination of years of training, sacrifice, and determination. It was a testament to the excellence of the Tuskegee Airmen and a direct challenge to those who had doubted their abilities. The German Luftwaffe pilots, once dismissive and mocking of the black pilots, now had no choice but to acknowledge their prowess in the air. The Mi-262, the most advanced jet fighter of its time, had been no match for the disciplined and skilled pilots of the 332nd Fighter Group. The success of the March 24, 1945 mission earned the 332nd Fighter Group a Distinguished Unit Citation, one of the highest honors any unit could receive. This mission also marked the final stage of the Tuskegee Airmen's combat history, leaving an indelible legacy in the skies over Europe. The Red Tails had proven beyond any doubt that race had no bearing on a pilot's ability to fight and win in aerial combat. Despite the recognition they received in combat, the Tuskegee Airmen faced continued challenges at home. Their wartime service had exposed the fallacy of segregation and racial inequality, yet when the war ended, they returned to a nation still deeply divided along racial lines. The accomplishments of the Tuskegee Airmen were largely overlooked by the mainstream press, and their success in defeating the Luftwaffe's best pilots was not celebrated in the same way as the achievements of their white counterparts. As World War II came to a close, the Tuskegee Airmen returned home to a country that had yet to fully recognize their contributions. Despite their groundbreaking success in combat, the Red Tails were met with indifference and, at times, hostility. While the nation celebrated the victory over Nazi Germany and the Axis powers, the black pilots who had played an integral role in that victory faced the harsh reality of segregation and discrimination. Upon their return, the Tuskegee Airmen were subjected to the same racial prejudices that they had battled for years. They were not hailed as heroes by mainstream America. Instead, they were expected to return to the same oppressive environments they had left behind. Many pilots found themselves unable to find civilian work in aviation, despite their extensive combat experience and skills that far exceeded those of their peers. The Red Tails' success did not immediately translate into equality or recognition for African Americans in the military or society at large. Although they had proven themselves in the skies over Europe, the U.S. military maintained its policy of segregation, and black veterans returned to a society that still relegated them to second-class status. It was not until 1948, when President Harry S. Truman signed Executive Order 9981, that the military was officially desegregated, a decision influenced by the Tuskegee Airmen's exceptional performance. But for the men of the 332nd Fighter Group, change came slowly. Their wartime achievements were largely ignored by the American public, and they were denied the kind of celebration and accolades given to their white counterparts. Even within the military, their accomplishments were downplayed, and their role in defeating the Luftwaffe and protecting bombers was minimized. Many of the Red Tails, such as Lee Archer, the squadron's first African-American ace, found that even after the war their heroism was often dismissed or ignored. Archer himself recounted the difficulty of convincing others of his wartime exploits, stating, "A black fighter pilot must be lying." As the years passed, recognition for the Tuskegee Airmen slowly began to grow. Their contributions became a symbol of African American excellence and a testament to the power of perseverance against racial oppression. The Red Tails had not only proven their worth in combat, but had also exposed the deep flaws in the racial prejudices that had long been entrenched in American society. In 2007, the Tuskegee Airmen finally received the recognition they had long deserved when they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by President George W. Bush. The ceremony, held in Washington, D.C., was a long overdue acknowledgement of the pilots' extraordinary achievements during World War II. Of the original Tuskegee Airmen, fewer than 300 were alive to attend the ceremony, having waited over 60 years for the recognition they had earned. The award was not just a recognition of their bravery in combat, but also a symbol of the progress made in the fight for civil rights and equality. Despite this official recognition, the struggle for equality continued. The Tuskegee Airmen had fought two wars, one against fascism abroad and another against racism at home. Their combat record had shattered the racist myths about African American capabilities, but true equality in the military and civilian life would take much longer to achieve. Nevertheless, their legacy endured as a powerful reminder that excellence transcends race. By the end of the war, the Tuskegee Airmen had accumulated remarkable statistics: 15,000 combat sorties, 1,578 missions, 112 aerial victories, and 3 Mi-262 jet fighters destroyed in a single mission. Their bomber escort missions resulted in only 27 bombers lost to enemy fighters, a stark contrast to the 46 average losses experienced by other groups. The success of the Red Tails proved that race had nothing to do with a pilot's ability to perform in combat, and their legacy continued to challenge societal norms long after the war had ended. The Tuskegee Airmen's journey did not end with the conclusion of World War II. Their legacy continued to influence the course of American history, especially in the fight for civil rights and equality within the military and beyond. The Red Tails' performance in combat forced the nation to confront its racial prejudices, eventually helping to pave the way for greater integration and opportunities for African Americans in various sectors, including the military. One of the most significant impacts of the Tuskegee Airmen was the integration of the United States military. Their combat success and the undeniable proof of their abilities played a key role in President Harry S. Truman's decision to desegregate the military with Executive Order 9981 in 1948. This landmark decision ended racial segregation in the armed forces, marking a significant shift toward equality. The Tuskegee Airmen's accomplishments helped show that African Americans could perform at the highest levels in all areas of military service, from flying fighter planes to commanding troops. The airmen's contributions also had a profound effect on American society's perception of African American capabilities. By excelling in combat, the Tuskegee Airmen directly challenged the pervasive racist stereotypes that depicted African Americans as inferior. Their success demonstrated that race had no bearing on a person's intelligence, courage, or ability to perform in high-stakes environments. The Red Tails' story became a powerful symbol of resilience and excellence, proving that the prejudice and discrimination they faced could not limit their potential. In addition to their contributions to civil rights, the Red Tails' success in the sky had a direct influence on the future of American aviation. Their victories in combat and their role in providing bomber escort missions contributed to the development of more advanced fighter aircraft and aviation strategies. The P-51 Mustang, which the Tuskegee Airmen flew during their missions, became one of the most revered aircraft of World War II, and the lessons learned from their aerial tactics influenced future generations of military pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen's legacy also played a critical role in breaking down racial barriers in other professional fields. Their service and success served as a model for other African Americans who sought to enter traditionally white-dominated professions. As the airmen earned respect in the skies, their story inspired countless individuals to pursue careers in areas such as science, engineering, medicine, and politics, where racial exclusion had once been the norm. Despite the recognition that came much later in life, the Red Tails remained a deeply influential group of individuals. Many of the surviving members of the Tuskegee Airmen continued to serve as mentors and advocates for civil rights long after their military careers ended. Figures such as General Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the first African-American general in the U.S. Air Force, and Lieutenant Colonel Lee Archer, one of the squadron's first aces, continue to serve as symbols of determination, courage, and leadership. Their story also became a touchstone in the broader narrative of Black military history, and served as a foundation for future generations of African-American military aviators. By the time the Tuskegee Airmen received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2007, their legacy had become a central part of the American historical narrative, and their contributions were celebrated as one of the defining moments in the fight for racial equality. The Red Tails' impact on military integration and racial equality cannot be overstated. They did not just fight for freedom abroad, they fought for freedom at home. Their story highlighted the strength of the human spirit and proved that, given the opportunity, African Americans could excel at the highest levels in every field. The Tuskegee Airmen's success in the skies over Europe and their resilience in the face of adversity remains one of the greatest stories of American history, one that transcends race, war, and time itself. The Tuskegee Airmen's story is a profound reminder of the power of perseverance and excellence. Their victory in the face of overwhelming adversity, both in combat and in their personal lives, demonstrates that no matter the obstacles placed in front of them, they could achieve greatness. The Red Tails did not just change the course of the war, they changed the course of American history.